and welcome to The Print. My name is Devdatta, and today we are in conversation with Wajahat Khan, who is joining us from the US on his recent conviction and life imprisonment for journalism in Pakistan. We speak to him to understand the implications of such a move and what he thinks about the future of Pakistan under a military rule. Welcome to The Print, Wajahat.
Thank you. Good to be here.
To begin with, to give a little bit of context before we begin this conversation, you, along with seven other journalists, have now been sentenced to a double life imprisonment, up to 80 years, more than 80 years, for a case that goes back to the 9th May riots in 2023. You have also been sentenced in absentia. Your trial was done without a defense counsel, without even letting you know that there was a case. When you first heard about the verdict and the conviction, what were your initial thoughts on it?
Sad. I was sad. It's sad what's become of the freedom of the press in Pakistan. Global indices reflect on this. But the very fact that state capture is effectively complete in different parts of the power structures of Pakistan. We always have known that the military is all powerful, but more or less other institutions have managed to show their might from time to time. Sometimes the parliament will come up with, as we've seen in the past, some very progressive legislation. Sometimes the judiciary would come up with some great cases in favor of the people of Pakistan, minorities, women. Other institutions have relatively been weak in Pakistan over decades. This is not a surprise compared to the army, but the very way in which the army has effectively completely captured all other institutions of the state. And just like India, Pakistan has three centers of power. There's the executive, there's the judiciary, and there's parliament, right? We have similar models. But the way parliament has been reduced to not just a mere rubber stamp, but even less than that. And the way the judiciary has been defanged, neutered, only increases the role of the executive by the law of sheer physics. But the executive, as in India, as we know, the executive is run by a democratically elected prime minister and his government, or her government for that matter, whoever may be in office. But not the case in Pakistan, where the executive is strong, but not really in charge, not really run by the people or a people-run dispensation, run directly from Rawalpindi and GHQ. And the way the army's gotten strong, Pakistan's seen military rules in the past. But the way this rule has really gotten ahead and restructured the balance of power, it's quite scary. It's quite sad.
And with, the lines between a civil and a military rule being blurred, what would you say is the current situation for a common citizen in Pakistan, given that, journalists like you and people can be convicted of any case and can be presented a sentence with so much of blurring of these lines? What does Pakistan's current situation look like to you?
So Pakistan, much like other countries of the region, including India, has several divides, right? There's the ethnic divide, there's the religious divide, there's the rich versus poor divide, there's clearly the gender divide. Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, we all suffer most of the same problems, right? But unfortunately, more than any other country in the region, we also have a civil military divide. And the civil military divide today is so stark, it's so dark, it's so disturbing, and it's so imbalanced that it looks like, it seems like, it smells and feels and tastes like there's two Pakistans. There's a Pakistan for you if you're in the Pakistan army, and there's a Pakistan for everybody else. The garrison state has literally, we were called the garrison state. There was this old adage about the Prussian military, which came around a couple of hundred years ago after the Napoleonic Wars, that some countries have an army, and in Prussia's case, the army has a country. They used to talk about that 200 years ago. The only recent resonance of that has emerged for Pakistan's army. But I don't even think that's they have the country. They have the entire population at hostage as well. So I think it's disturbing the way they've taken over. We've seen, like I said, military rules in the past, but this one is starker, it's darker, it's more ferocious, it's more vicious. And interestingly, here's the best part. It's still trying to pretend unlike other military rules, it's still trying to pretend that it is democratic. There is a parliament in place, there is a prime minister in place, there is a cabinet in place, there is a constitutional amendment which allows the quasi military ruler, Asim Munir, to have immunity for life, to serve in uniform or out of uniform forever, to have perks and privileges beyond his retirement, which, by the way, is not happening anytime soon. So I'm still curious about why this all powerful, almighty quasi dictator doesn't just come out of the closet and says, okay, I'm in charge, rubbish everything else. And that gives me hope. That gives me hope that they're still using the dispensation of parliament, of democracy, this scam, this facade, this veil that they have is fake. Obviously, it is. We all know it. But why are they using it? Why don't they come out like Ziaul Haq did, or Ayub Khan did, or Musharraf did? Why don't they do away with parliament? Why don't they do away with any semblance of democracy? And that's where India and Pakistan have a commonality. We both emerged out of some sort of a democratic dream. We both emerged out of some sort of a democratic constitutional dispensation. You were founded by lawyers, we were founded by lawyers. And that goes on to really underscore the important and basic premise of the rule of law in the Indian DNA and in the Pakistani DNA. Indian democracy has a lot of flaws, so does the Pakistani democracy. And the India system of governance 8 decades later has a lot of problems, so does Pakistan's. But this is the one strand which I think even this all-powerful military cannot cut. They cannot disconnect the polity of Pakistan from its origins as a constitutionally bound state. And I think that gives me hope for the press, for parliament, for our minorities, for our women, for everybody else who is in the process of fighting for their rights.
But also with with so many constitutional amendments and with every democratic institution now being under military control, how do you think that plays out? I mean, if we look at the case of what happened with you guys, the whole conviction, it was it was a legal case, a 2-year-old case, and now there's a arrest at sight order. What does it mean for so much, what does it mean for one country to be under this kind of repression, and the impact on the democratic institutions per se that this will have going ahead? I mean, already the last constitution amendment saw the Supreme Court being stripped out of its powers. So it has now become, this is something, the overreach has become imminent and very apparent on every state institution or democratic institutions, like you say. So how does that play out going ahead?
It's disturbing because the people who have processed this, who have greenlit this, who have actually underwritten all of this, are actually people who have suffered similar injustice. Nawaz Sharif and Asif Zardari, the two power puppet masters of the so-called democratic regime, or the PMLN and the PPP, the Pakistan People's Party and Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, have both suffered years of injustice. Benazir Bhutto, before she was killed, was also tried in absentia. Nawaz Sharif, before he arrived or re-arrived on the scene, was also tried in absentia. In absentia, ex parte trials where due process is not followed, where you just pick up a person's name and allege anything against them and say, all right, you are getting a life imprisonment or 10 years or 80 years or whatever. It's happened to the leaders of the parties which are in charge now. And I'm wondering, what did they have to give away? What did they get? What was the deal that they made with the devil in Khaki, that they are now doing the same to the people of Pakistan, to some of the finest journalists of Pakistan, to some of the bravest human rights advocates of Pakistan, which they have suffered themselves? See, if this was just through a military-run system, I wouldn't be surprised. But the fact that Nawaz Sharif, Shahbaz Sharif, Asif Zardari, Benazir Bhutto, all of these people have suffered exile, like we have. They've suffered ex parte judgments, like we have. They've been tried in absentia, like we have, which one would say should make them sympathetic to what the system is doing to us. but they're actually underwriting it. And that goes on to tell me that something has happened to the mainstream democratic parties in charge of Pakistan, on paper, at least right now. They have made a deal with the devil, and I'm very curious what this deal is. And that is my reporting. And my reporting is trying to unearth what their system is. What is this weird situation where the same parties, which, by the way, for decades have been against military rule. The PPP has a long record, if you look back, apart from the last 10 years or so, has a long record of being anti military. The Pakistan Muslim League has a long record of speaking its own mind. How and why are they step in lockstep with the military all of a sudden? What has happened? And that the answer to that, frankly, is one person, Imran Khan. He's happened, and emerged as such a threat to this prevalent two-party system that his third party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, is seen by all people involved, the PPP, the PMLN, other smaller parties which are with them, and of course, the largest political party in the country, the military. Because let's be honest, the military is not a military, it works as a political party as well. It's got candidates, it decides who runs for elections, it decides the results of polls, it controls media. All these things are done by political parties. And like any political party, it continues to stay in power and do what it needs to stay in power. So my reporting has been actually investigating and targeting that particular question. And the question is obvious. And premised on that, it seems Imran is such a threat today to the entire system that it has turned upon itself. And that makes me curious. And as a journalist, you would know, Deepika, that when a journalist is curious, nothing can stop them. So 80 years or 160 years, I'm not a vampire. At this rate, I'm going to be, if I decide to come back to Pakistan and serve 80 years, I'm going to be a hale and hearty 135 or 140 years. By the time they release me, that's clearly not happening. So this, as far as I'm concerned, this trial is a joke. It was no evidence was presented. The charges have been just slammed one after the other. We weren't even told who our lawyer is. We weren't even told where the court proceedings are. We weren't sent an email, a letter, a summons, nothing. So this is it's a kangaroo court. In fact, kangaroos have a little more style. I don't know what this was. This was a bit of stand-up comedy, very dark stand-up comedy from the courts. And again, the purpose of lawfare, as you know, is to intimidate, to threaten. They're going to extradite us, probably. That's one of the part of the plan. That's not happening. We're all lawyered up here. We know our rights here. They're going to try to shut down our platforms. We have First Amendment protections here in the US. Well, we are in touch with these leading platforms. We're not worried about that. I don't know what they're doing. What they're effectively doing is this. They're actually increasing our outreach. You wouldn't have called me or done this story had they not done this, had they not conducted this silly trial. The very reason that my voice and the voice of my colleagues is now amplified. We're now speaking to the largest country in the world right next door. The very fact that they've amplified us and made us more popular. Well, I'm a little Donald Trump in that sense. All news is good news, and I will take any sort of popularity if it comes my way.
Based on what you said, two questions. One is, like you mentioned, that the reason probably the political parties who once used to be anti-military are now pandering to the military is the rise of Imran Khan as a factor and the threat to the two-party rule.
Yeah.
Now with Imran Khan in jail and a lot of repeated convictions that is being pushed his way as well, would you call the current judgment that was passed by the ATC as a larger one among the larger crackdowns on people who were once vocal about Khan's politics, and now with him in jail they are trying to crack down on dissenters? One. And second is that with so much power given to one person in the country, becoming the supreme commander of almost and running the country on your rules, what does that mean for democracy in Pakistan going ahead? I mean, we know that he has been given, he will ideally rule until 2030. He might actually have an extension until 2035. We don't know how this is going to play out. But in the coming years, how do you think this is going to impact Pakistan as a whole?
Well, firstly, we kind of know how this will play out. The average shelf life of a Pakistani dictatorship, if you go and put it together, and I've done the math, it's a fantastic little algorithm to put together. If you put together the 8 or 9 or 10 years of Ayub, if you put together a couple of years of Yahya, if you put together the 10 or 11 years of Zia, if you put together the 9 or 10 years of Musharraf, then the number, I came up with this in one of my reports, which you should watch actually, is 9.25. It takes 9.25 years for a Pakistani dictator to, for lack of a better word, F off. Right now, whether they are killed mysteriously in the skies like Ziaul Haq was, whether they fade into nothingness like Ayub was, whether they have to impose self-exile on themselves and run with their tails between their legs like Musharraf, it takes around 9.25 years. That's the math. And this is I didn't make this up. This is the last 80 years of Pakistani dictatorships. So I'm waiting for the algorithm to kick in. Obviously, I'm also waiting for an algorithmic jump because this dictator is ruling on a Pakistan which is very different from previous versions of Pakistan. On the one hand, he has galvanized his power. And I must say that India has given him a very good excuse to galvanize his power. Operation Sindoor actually empowered him. He gave himself a fifth star. He gave himself the luxury of staying in power, as you have calculated, for the next 5 or 10 years. A 4-day war got him 10 extra years in office, if you want to call it that. Now, the results of that war can be debated. We're not talking about Operation Sindoor. That's not the topic today. But the very fact is that he used that opportunity to not just galvanize himself at home, but also propel himself abroad. That makes him very smart, the way he's maneuvered himself with the Americans, the way he's maneuvered himself with the Arabs. It makes him very smart. He's an operator. He didn't just sit there, gave himself a fifth star, and went golfing. He did not go golfing. He went crypto mining. He went to critical minerals mining. He's going to Gaza. So he's making as many moves internationally as he's making locally. And I find that quite a bit of an overreach. And when anybody overreaches, even if they're a five-star field marshal, overreach usually has disastrous effects. Pakistani military dictators who have overreached in the past, Musharraf overreached with the Americans and the Indians, was trying to do too much too quickly with Manmohan Singh, was trying to do too much too quickly with his friends in the White House and the CIA. He was shown the door by this very army. Ziaul Haq was doing too much too quickly. The Geneva Accords, defeating the Russian army, developing nuclear weapons, spitting in India's face with Operation Brass Tacks. He was shown the door too, and not and up in the skies. So this army is very good at showing the door to its own leaders, to its own generals when they think that time's up. Because the army ultimately, like any institution, derives its power from the people. And the people of Pakistan, in this case, are who are, by the way, this is a strange thing about Pakistan. And as an Indian, I ask you to really consider this. Pakistanis in the past have actually welcomed military coups. Pakistanis in the past have actually welcomed the demise of democratic dispensations. I was a younger man when Musharraf took over in 98, 99. People were distributing mithai on the streets of Lahore. There's footage of this. You should look it up. That's not happening today because the man who they have displaced is not Nawaz Sharif. He is the antithesis of Nawaz Sharif. Imran Khan, his demise was not celebrated with mithai. His demise was celebrated with month after month and now year after year of protests against the system. So this current dispensation was assuming that Pakistanis, the Pakistani street, would fall back on those typical, usual mechanisms where they say, yeah. The narrative is that the army rocks, it's very stable, it's not corrupt, it's very strong, it'll help us protect ourselves against India and those evil Taliban and those crazy Shias in Iran, and we're all good. That's the narrative the army likes to think that the people want to propel. It's not working. It's not working. Something's changed. Something's changed about this dispensation versus all the other examples I've given you. What
To the
has
point
happened? What has
that
happened?
dip.
Correct. And when the support of the people dips for this institution, well, I think the institution eventually goes into self-correction mode, and we know how the Pakistani army self-corrects. We have enough examples. We have enough plane crashes. We have enough mysterious deaths. We have enough exiles. We have enough people who've been forgotten by history, and not in a good way. But I'll tell you one thing about this man. He is controlling not just Pakistan or Pakistan's geopolitical foreign policy very well in his own way, uh, not well for democratic standards, but well for galvanizing his own power. But he's also changing the structure of the army. He's purged hundreds of officers. He has empowered military intelligence agencies. The ISI now has a counterpart, equally, some people say, an equally powerful counterpart in military intelligence. So he's trying to build up the apparatus that not just watches over Pakistanis, but also the apparatus that controls the army. So because he has served, he's the only army chief to have served as the boss of the military intelligence apparatus, MI, as well as the ISI. That puts him in a special place. He's extra learned, and that makes me wary of him. And that's why I like watching him so much and doing so many reports on him. I even have a nickname for him, which has now gone popular, Boota. I love calling him that because this man is wearing boots, probably even in his pajamas. So he's quite stern. He's quite a disciplinarian. And I like Kremlin watching and psychoanalyzing his next moves. So far, I see someone who is overstepping, who's ambitious, he's smart, but he's overstepping. And people who overstep, well, the laws of physics apply to them. They eventually trip.
And do you think that, with so much of an overreach, his end of time or his downfall, or however you would like to term it, would come from the inside, would come from within his own military ranks?
As a
Would you
Muslim,
say?
As a Muslim, I'm not in the business of prophecies. Allah knows best. Allah knows the future. Zindagi maut Allah Ta'ala ke haath mein hoti hai. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's going to be an internal coup. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to have some sort of a geopolitical overreach because now he's playing games with the Israelis. Now he's playing games with the Palestinians. He's playing games which have been dangerous for Pakistan in the past as well, with the Americans. He's got his feet in too many boats. He's got his fingers in too many pies. There's too much going on in Balochistan, in the KP, in Punjab, politically, with Imran, with the Afghans, with the Iranians, with the Indians, with the Chinese, with the Americans, with the Israelis. He's just really, he's not a typical military ruler. There's just a lot going on. And because of that, all I can tell you is overreach has its own physical and political ramifications. And maybe he can pull it off, but I doubt, according to the patterns of history, that he will.
Then I guess we'll have to wait for some 9 point few years to see where this goes. But on that note, thank you so much for speaking to the Print, Wajahat.
Thank you. I'm glad you are doing this story, and I'm very impressed with the Print's maverick reporting on this. Well done. Good job.
Thank you.